us today and welcome to our online media training session. Ladies and gentlemen, the training session will last for 45 to 50 minutes and Q&A session is 25 minutes. Dear participants, if you want to ask a question, just raise your hands. As usual, you all know the procedures. Please don't forget to mute your microphones during the training session as well. Distinguished participants, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, our special speaker for today is Mr. Rahmi Osman Kachmas, Multimedia Manager and Senior Editor at Daily Sabah. He started as an editor in the founding core team that established the Daily Sabah brand. Editorial responsibility included picking and writing news stories fast and precisely from around the globe, with a strong focus on Turkey and Turkish politics. Added to that, he also wrote business, lifestyle, history, technology articles, and also reports real-time speeches of top politicians on social media. Our speaker redesigned dailysabah.com twice in line with the needs of the brand. He designed the Arabic website and e-paper application for iOS, eDaily Sabah. Mr. Rahmi managed the Daily Sabah website and social media accounts and also planned and managed social media budget, as well as targeting for ads. Moreover, our speaker actively involved in the hiring and training process, searched and selected new talents, interviewed and trained new editors on journalism and technical skills, managing a team of multimedia editors who produce videos, infographics, and news articles with engaging visuals. Our distinguished speaker received his MBA in Strategic Design and Management at Bahçeşehir University here in Istanbul. Our speaker speaks English, German, and Turkish. Thank you, Mr. Rahmi, for joining us today. We are very excited to have you. The floor is yours, please.
Yes, hello everyone. So, as our distinguished host just introduced me, my name is Rahmi Osman Kachmas, and today I will talk about digital content creation. I will go over digital content creation in general first, for those especially of you who do not consider a career in journalism, because that might not be your focus, of course. And but since my main area of expertise is content creation for news outlets, that's what I will be talking about, and I will share my expertise with you, my experience. So before I start, I'll just give a few words about the Daily Sabah. Daily Sabah is one of Turkey's leading English news sources, and it has been running for 6.5 years. And I've been working there since it started, since it launched. Currently, I work as a multimedia manager, and in total, we have, in the whole newsroom, we have around 50 people, and this includes all managers, editors, copy editors, page designers, and also some 3 or 4 multimedia editors. So coming back to content creation, as you all know, content is at the core of the internet. All the traffic of the web revolves around digital content. We consume it every day, and also at a very, very fast pace. And search engines have made it incredibly easy to access high quality content. And because of that, people are less tolerant of low quality content. They really want to see high quality content all the time. And people move faster in everyday life. They have less time, and they want to spend the time they have on consuming good content. So that's why we have to focus on creating good content, high quality content. And our time as content creators is also valuable. And that's why we should be picking the content we will be producing very strategically. That's one of the key elements. And we also have to put thought into what people will want to consume. And for that, you will need to have a content strategy. So before going into the details of content strategy, I want to summarize the most common types of content, which all of you know. but I just want to summarize it. So content can be listed in 4 different groups. The first of it is text and articles, and then we have video and images and audio, or podcasts, which are nowadays very popular. So for text and for all of these different groups, we have, of course, different platforms where we can consume and produce and publish those. For text and articles, of course, we have news websites or different websites that are focused on different branches, different categories. We have social media outlets like Twitter, Facebook, and others. We have blogs, and emails and newsletters are also big. This is for text. And for video, we have, of course, the giant, which is YouTube. Facebook is also pretty big. Snapchat, Instagram, Vimeo, and also different websites also publish videos on their sites, like Daily Sabah does as well. And for images, the giant again is Instagram this time. We have Pinterest, Facebook, and we could again count the websites that do publish photos. For podcasts, I'm not going into the detail of that. I'm not an expert in audio or any podcasts, but that's another type of content. So with any type of content, your aim should be to build up an audience. So you can produce one-time hits, one-time articles, one-time content that will generate millions of viewers or millions of visitors, but those won't guarantee your success in the long run. So that's what you want to achieve. You want to have sustainable success. And that's where your content strategy comes in. To be consistently successful with any production, any content production, and to build up an audience, you will need to select the field in which you will produce content. You have to have a focus. So whatever platform you use to publish your content, it has to be concentrated on a specific niche. So if the topic you choose, if your focus is too broad, you will not have returning visitors because you won't be always focusing on the same subject, on the same topic. You can, of course, start broadening your focus once you have more people working on the same platform. But if you're working alone or in a small team, a too diverse focus will not benefit you. It will not be good. It will do more harm than any good. And the main goal of your strategy, of your content strategy, should always be to build an audience, as I said, which means to have returning loyal visitors. This is key. And to build up that audience, you should select your area of focus based on a few different factors. So the first one I can count here is you should select the topic in which you are interested in. It has to be interesting for you because you will be doing it in the long run. It won't just be for a few days or a few weeks. You will be doing it in the long run. And it should also be an area which you are knowledgeable about. You should have some expertise to share with people. It's not just enough to like an area, you also have to know something about it. This is the first important thing. The second is it should be a topic for which there's an audience. So you might be producing very good content, but if there's no audience for it, if people are not searching for it, it just doesn't work. You won't build up an audience. So you have to find a topic in which people are interested. And then also, because there's so much competition, the third thing I want to mention is you should find a topic where competition isn't too difficult, where competition isn't too strong. What does this mean? If you pick a topic where a lot of competitors are also in, like, for example, general news about the world, if you define it so broad, what will happen is you will find a lot of competitors who have hundreds, if not thousands of employees, and it will not be easy to compete with them. So it should be a niche, as I said. A niche is a small subject, a concentrated small subject. It should be concentrated enough so that it's not too difficult for you to compete with the competitors. And maybe lastly, you could also add to this, maybe the topic should be monetizable. Let's say it can be monetized, but this is not a must. Why is this not a must? As long as you have a good audience, you can always monetize it in one way or another. And the best example for this is, as it's always given, the search engines and the social media platforms like Google, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. All these platforms, they did not generate any money for a very, very long time. And then they had such a big audience that they could just do anything they wanted. And now they are the kings of the internet. And that's thanks to the audience that they have in control. So how do you find these topics? How can you find topics that are both interesting for you and which also have an audience? An easy way to do this is actually to use free keyword research applications or software. One of those is Google Trends. You can search for keywords and look up how much search traffic that keyword has. Or even better than that, you can use Google Keyword Planner. I highly recommend you to note this, Google Keyword Planner. You can use this to make research about which keywords are searched more. And I won't go into the details of this because it should be very, very easy to find detailed guides on how to use Google Keyword Planner online. You should just Google it and you will find it. It's a whole different topic. And yeah, you can do your research and find out if there's competition for that keyword or not. That's also one of the important things. And one tip I can give you is you should produce content that will benefit your audience. What does this mean? For example, if you publish an article, try to include keywords or try to write your story around things like, for example, 10 benefits of eating yogurt every day. 10 benefits of eating yogurt every day. Or top 5 places to visit in Istanbul. These are good examples because those titles directly benefit the reader. Of course, before writing any content, you have to select and find your own niche and your area of expertise. But after that, while writing content, this is one of the good ways to make content, yeah. And the quality of produced content is important, of course, as I said before, but the quantity of the produced content is also very important. That's also critical. What does this mean? You should be doing good quality articles, but the quantity of it, how often you publish, is also very important. And the reason for that is because search engines, social media algorithms, all of those, the logic, how they are built up is based on that. They prefer consistency. And content consumers also prefer consistent producers. Let's say you have a YouTube channel. You want to publish a video, and you publish a video, let's say today, and then for 3 weeks you don't publish anything, and then all at once you publish two other videos, and then you give a 2-month break. This won't work. I mean, you won't build up an audience like that. You might have 1 million views or something else, but in the long run, it won't benefit you. That's not the way to build up an audience. So you should be consistent in both quality and also quantity. That also means the quality of the contents you produce should not be unpredictable. So one day your content shouldn't be like super good, and then the other day just you spending like 10-15 minutes and making a low quality content. That shouldn't be the case. Yeah. And also it's important not to be repetitive. You might have a niche, you might have a topic, but you should not always repeat the same thing all the time. You should produce content that is unique. That's also important. And as I said before, to find content ideas, you can use Google Keywords Planner. And then another good idea is to determine who else produces content on the same topic as yours. So let's say you have selected your audience let's say you're in the fitness market, okay? You're producing content for fitness, about fitness. You should be following other people. You have to identify the people who are your competitors. Follow them, go and understand. Try to understand what they produce. Understand what they do right, and learn from it. That's also important. There are always leaders in every specific niche, every specific market. You should identify those and look at them, what kind of work they do. Maybe not all the work they do is getting a lot of engagement. Maybe it's just certain types of content. And you should really try to find those good contents and understand why those are good, why people want to reach those contents. And for that, you can look at Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, YouTube, all kinds of platforms, all the platforms those people are on. Go and just look at them. The content strategy for each platform might also be different. It doesn't have to be the same for every platform. So you have to observe what kind of content they produce. And then you can also find, as I said, the highest engagement content to get a good understanding of the topic. So the internet is actually transparent. You can do research about everything. Everything is open. As long as you have the motivation for it, you have to go do your research, and that way you can easily find content which can be produced. And another very important thing is to have unique content. That means you should not copy someone else's work. The platforms, all of the platforms, social media, search engines, all of them will punish you for plagiarizing content from other creators. And of course, it's not ethical either. So even if you copy an idea for a topic, this is something acceptable. You can copy the idea. You should modify or improve the title, the headline, the content, or maybe you should add something from your own. You should do your own research. So as long as you improve something, there's no problem with that. You can copy an idea and improve on it, but don't do the exact same thing. It won't benefit you. It will hurt you more. And there are actually hundreds and even thousands of content producers who focus on the same topic. Try to make something new. Don't repeat what others did. That's what's valuable. And that's also what search engines like. It requires, of course, more time investment, but it will be worth in the long run. Excuse me. So after you have determined your topic, your area of expertise, you want to select the platform on which you want to create content, because this will also determine how your content strategy is going to be formed. Some topics might require you to be on Pinterest. Some others might require you to be on other platforms and not on Pinterest. It might really change. And because it's such a broad spectrum when we speak about content creation, we have to take everything into consideration. And that goes through research. So as I explained before, you know all the different types of content groups. And we have all the different social media platforms, the websites. So for news, for example, if you're in the news business, you definitely want to be on Twitter. Twitter that's where everything is running. It's very important. It's very critical. And the journey of content creation is actually not something that happens at once. It doesn't just happen at once. You will need to produce a lot of content for it to maybe build up an audience. You know, a lot of it will not reach a large audience, and that's normal. You shouldn't be demotivated by it. Sometimes you will invest a lot of time to produce something, but it might not always work. Other times, something that takes much less of your time than the thing you thought was so much better might go viral. You can't know. It's all about trial and error and finding the right balance. So that's very important. And since it all depends on the topic you will be focused on, there's no single guaranteed formula that I can give you that will work everywhere. It's, as I said, a bit of trial and error, and you will need to research, produce, fail, repeat until you succeed. It's a process of trial and experimentation, observing and learning, seeing what resonates with people, what people want to consume. So if producing content is something you enjoy, you should just get started and not wait until everything is perfect. Most things that end up reaching a lot of people is not perfect. You can look at a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of articles. Most of the ones that come up in search results at the top are not very perfect articles. You generally have to scroll down to find something better, but there's generally something that those people did right, and that's why they end up at the top. And quality is, of course, important. And one of the determining things here is the headline or the title of the article or the content you're producing, because people will not have a glimpse at your content first and then come into it. The only window that they will have into the content will be the title. And of course, if it's a platform like Twitter, Facebook, or Google Now, what you can also see is an image, but that will be it. So the most important thing in content creation to lure someone into your story is that title. And I will talk a bit more about that as I talk about my experience at the newspaper. But in general, yeah, that's the important thing. And another thing that you shouldn't do is clickbait articles, clickbait titles. The reason for that is sometimes, I mean, especially in Turkish media, we see that a lot on Turkish news websites. People make all kinds of clickbait headlines and titles, and they expect people to click. They do, but then the content doesn't have anything to do with the title, which isn't very nice. I mean, this is not high quality content. And after some time, they will just go and search for other platforms to find about news. I mean, they won't come to you. It's that easy, because nobody is irreplaceable at the moment. No content, no content platform, no publication. Nobody is irreplaceable. So that's why it's very important to not do things that will upset your audience. That's very important. And yeah, you should reach a good enough quality and maintain it. And that's all I have to say for content creation in general. Now I would like to share some tips and insights about producing news, which is my main field. And I've got a few notes here, just a moment. Okay, let's start with this one. So my notes are mainly on news categories and sources of the stories and about writing and editing. And after that, I will also share with you the most read stories of the Daily Sabah from the past 12 months. So maybe that will also give you an idea of what kinds of content are good. So news in general can be separated into a few different categories. And as you can see here in this graphic, I have separated them into a few different categories. Of course, you don't have to necessarily separate news stories into these categories, but there's something I would like to share with you with this categorization. Let's start with the first one, which is politics. A lot of people might think that politics articles are the most read contents of news websites, but that's generally not the truth. Politics and business articles generally have a very specific and niche audience. You will generally not get a lot of visitors with these stories. They are important because politics and political news are important, of course, but it's just not the main driving factor. And of course, this changes depending on geography as well. In Turkey, people are more interested about politics, but in some other countries, like in Germany, where I was grown up, I know that people are not that much interested in politics. A lot of people won't even know the name of the foreign minister in Germany. So yeah, after politics, business. It's at the core of economy. So people who want to be informed about the economy and money will read, of course, business news. But it's, again, not going to be a very large percentage. Sometimes if there's a very important incident, these articles may, of course, go viral. But as a general rule, that's not the case. It doesn't happen. So moving on to stories from Turkey, these are actually interesting. We have a strong focus on this at the Daily Sabah. It's mainly because we are from Turkey. Our headquarters is in Turkey. But also because we also have a focus on this because there just aren't many news outlets from Turkey that produce English content about and from Turkey. So sometimes there are very, very interesting national stories happening in Turkey that will go just viral internationally. If you pick the correct article, it can go viral. People find it interesting. And generally, for those articles, we will be the first ones to publish those stories. And we get a lot of visitors. And this is also one of the good examples of picking a good niche or topic. As I said, there's not a lot of competition in news from Turkey, at least in English. And that's why it's still a niche. It's a topic that can be picked. And news stories from Turkey don't have a lot of competition from huge Western news outlets. The Western news outlets will generally cover political stories about Turkey with only one aim, and that is to leave a bad impression about Turkey or its government. That's generally their only aim. If it's something good about Turkey, something just happening on the street, something unrelated to politics, it would generally be something we covered before and they maybe took from us or other competitors of ours like TRT World or Hürriyet Daily News. So let's move on to world and international news stories. This is actually a very, very huge spectrum. It covers all the world, every country, all kinds of stories. And we have, of course, a lot of competition from the world's largest news outlets in this category. Sometimes if we have a very good title and a well-edited article, the stories can end up on the front page of Reddit, for example. And if it ends up on Reddit, on the front page, you get a lot of traffic. Or a lot of times, our stories will also appear among the top stories in Google search. And that, again, it depends on the titles you use. The title and also the lead. I will talk about that later. So world and international news is not an easy topic because, as I said, it covers everything from the world. And you need to be very fast as an editor not to fall behind in publishing stories from the world because everyone else is also looking at it. So that's another area. And as I said here, it can go viral, especially if it's a controversial story. That's also one of the key elements. So you shouldn't always be staying in the safe zone. I mean, sometimes it's good to stay in the safe zone, but sometimes you should also cover controversial topics because that will attract a lot of traffic, both from your supporters and also from those who don't support you, because it will be something controversial. They will come to look at it. So this can be said for many sections, not just for world and international stories. But yeah, it's a key thing in news content production. And then lifestyle and arts, this one is also interesting. These two sections actually have a very large audience on the Daily Sabah, and also in other newspapers, I know that. People are interested in articles on all kinds of sections from this section. Let me just show you one image. So these are our sections from the Daily Sabah. I just took a screenshot. And you can see here, under lifestyle, we have health, environment, travel, food, fashion, science, religion, history, feature, expert corner. And in arts, we have cinema, music, events, portrait, performing arts reviews. All of these sections will actually get a lot of visitors. And let me come back to this one. And the articles in these sections are also very enjoyable to read. People tend to be very interested in technology and history, especially. And the reason for that is because I think they are very interested in the future and the past. What will happen and would happen in the past. Yeah, so lifestyle is a good area. Tabloid news, these are mainly magazine articles. They can be about personalities, about artists, figures, all kinds of famous people. And if the story is controversial, it will get even more visitors. This can be said for most news, as I said. And lastly, sports. Sports articles can also go viral, but it's not an easy area to focus on. The reason for that is because there are there are so many things happening in sports. There are so many different categories of sports, and it's a whole different area of expertise. And I can also say that we are not very strong at sports because it's, as I said, it's a whole different area, and that's also why so many sports websites exist. Yeah, and that's it for this note. I can skip to the next one. Sorry. So now about the sources of stories. News can be gathered in a few different ways. So news organizations like the Daily Sabah, they are subscribed to newswires or news agencies. What does this mean? There are different news agencies that, like Associated Press, Reuters, AFP, DPA, all kinds of different agencies. And we basically subscribe to the agencies that produce news articles globally. They will have hundreds, if not thousands, of employees scattered throughout the world. It can be in the major metropolitans or at the most remote cities in the world. And they deliver news very fast. It's something to actually follow these news agencies as well, because they produce thousands of stories every day, and it's not easy to follow all of those. You have to sit down and be very focused and look at what's coming from agencies. That's a whole nother job at a newspaper. I mean, of course, nobody just does that. That's just a part of being a journalist. We all skim through all the agency news every day. But of course, we also follow social media, TV channels, and other news outlets and other sources, because you never know from where a story might come. And we take these stories from the agencies. I mean, we grab them and we edit them, and then we publish them. That means our titles will always be unique. It will never be the same as it came from the agency. And the reason for that is to be original. I mean, if you use the exactly same title, Google will see it as plagiarism. Even if you paid for it, doesn't matter. And we also modify the wording of the stories and sometimes combine multiple different sources and yeah, make a single story out of those. And the advantage to this is that it saves a lot of time, of course, and a lot of money, because having so many employees everywhere is just impossible for mid-sized news organizations. For very large ones, it's okay, but still not very easy, because you have to cover so many expenses, like travel and then accommodation, equipment, all kinds of things. And the disadvantage is that stories are not unique when you buy them from newswires. You must make, of course, changes. It takes some time. This is the con of using newswire stories. And the second method is to compile stories from other news outlets. What this basically means is you basically take a story, rewrite it with your own words, and then you contribute some additional information, if you have any, and you publish that. Or you can also find information from other sources and combine them. This also saves a lot of time, and it's one of the main methods used for international news globally, for any news agency, for any news corporation or company, newspaper. And lastly, you can have your own reporters or yourself. You can be the reporter, but that reporter will have to be on the field. You have to go to the place where the incident happened. And as I said, this requires extra time and financial investment. You will have to cover the travel expenses, accommodation, equipment, salary, and it all adds up very fast. It's not cheap. And of course, the output will be very unique. This is the biggest benefit of it, which is great in many ways. But and again, even if you do this, you have to be very careful and select the articles very well, because you're spending that much money. It has to be worth it, your time, and your money. However, most news organizations are nowadays laying off field reporters, and they are opting for news wires instead. This is something that can especially be observed in Turkey. Most news outlets don't have more than a dozen of reporters left. It's definitely about the financial part of it. And I'll just move to the last note. Should be this. And this is about writing and editing the stories. The title is or the headline is the most important element of a news article. It will determine if the potential visitor will click your headline or not. It has to be descriptive, explanatory, thought-provoking, interesting, sometimes controversial, and always short. And you might be asking, why should it be short? The reason is Google, because Google will rank shorter titles higher in search results. That doesn't mean you should, of course, have the title that's 15 characters long. No, it should be less than 70 characters. And it's not an easy thing to do so many things in 70 characters. And that goes through practice. In every area, it's the same. Practice makes perfect. The more you write, the more you produce content, the better you will get at it. And experience will make you a better writer, and you will write better titles. And yeah, writing good titles or headlines is one of the most important skills of journalism, especially in digital journalism. It takes time and practice with trial and error, and as any content production does. And moving on to the photo, the selection of the photo, especially the cover photo, is also very, very crucial. The cover photo is just as important as the headline. And the reason for this is because sometimes people just don't read. They skim through content on their mobile phones, especially. When they see a very interesting photo, they will click. That's how it works. And sometimes whole articles can be shaped around a single photograph. You can tell so many things about a single image. And photographs can be very powerful. They can speak more than an article. It's a very important part of journalism. Photojournalism is very important. Of course, not only as a cover photo, but also within the article body. A story needs to be enriched with visuals, photos, and graphics. Sometimes a single video can explain more than a page-long article, especially when the article is about an incident. Explaining with text is something, but seeing it for yourself is something else. So if you have a video, you should definitely be using it. You should almost always use it, as long as the quality is acceptable, as long as you can see something in the video. And infographics are also a very good way to visualize a story, especially for incidents that cover a large area. So in such cases, it's always a good idea to pull up a map. You can take a screenshot from the map and draw what happened on the map. And there are tools for that. You can use Photoshop, you can use Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator. There are all kinds of image manipulation programs, applications that you can use. So, for example, it can be an article about territorial conflict or anti-terrorism operations, cross-border military operations, or even just for explaining what's happening in a city. Infographics are just very, very powerful, and you can visualize a lot of good news stories with the right tools. And lastly, the lead. The lead is actually the first sentence or the first 1 to 2 paragraphs of the article. This part of a news story is very important. It should summarize everything, and the reader should at least understand 80% of the entire story from this part. So you should include what the story is about, who is it about, where did it happen, when did it happen. All these kinds of informations should be in the lead, which is the first and the second generally paragraph. So it should be short. Excuse me, just a moment. Yes, okay. Of course, there can be exceptions to this. If it's an in-depth analysis or a storytelling piece, it can look very different. Sometimes the lead may not explain 80% of the story. This is when it's a storytelling piece. But for normal news writing, this part is very important. It's also important because Google will pay attention to this part. Right below the title, when you search for something on Google, you will get results, the title. Right below the title, you will see the description. It's a 160 character long, on average, area, and it will be pulled from the lead in the story, the first paragraphs, unless you specify differently. And that's about writing news in very short. I think we don't have much more time left. Oh yes, and lastly, I want to share the most read stories, as I said. Okay, you can see them here. So these are the most read stories from the past 12 months. And as you can see here, most articles are about Turkey. And that's with no surprise because, as I said before, we have a strong focus on Turkey. And the rest could be entirely counted as health stories. So health is also very big. Of course, the coronavirus has had a big impact on this. And the third most read story concerns Pro over Queen Elizabeth's health. This could also be counted as a tabloid story because it's about a personality. And there's also a story about China's preparation for a ban on eating cats and dogs, which is again related to the coronavirus. Yeah. So that will be it from me for today. I'm sure some of you will have questions about things I haven't mentioned. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me now. And if any questions come to your mind after this session, feel free to drop me an email. My email is, I'll just write it in the chat here, just a moment. Okay, this is my email address.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rahmi, for your valuable and brilliant presentation. Dear participants, I would like to open the Q&A session. Please just raise your hand and I will call your name to unmute your microphone and ask your questions. Mr. Yasir Ahmed, you can ask your question, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I would like to thank the speaker for giving us the insight in digital marketing. And somehow it's my field as a social media advertiser. I want to ask, so when creating digital content, and from my part, I create adverts. I can use text, images, and videos. Most of the time, the videos try to explain more. But looking at the plagiarism aspect, when we plagiarize some content, let's say a portion of a video or audio into our content we create, do you think it affects our score on the SEO or so how the social media engines take it? What do you think about that?
So if I understand your question correctly, if you incorporate some plagiarized content, how will the social media and search engine algorithms react to that? Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. But the aspect of adverts, somehow but since they are part of the digital content creations, yeah.
Of adverts, sorry?
Yeah, digital content adverts, yeah, for social media.
On social media. I am not an expert on advertisement, to be honest, so I can't really say much about that. But I can, do you make it on an image, or how exactly do you publish it?
Yeah, sometimes I do images, you get some backgrounds on Google, and sometimes in videos.
Sometimes videos. I'm pretty sure that both the search engines and also social media platforms have an algorithm to determine what is written inside videos and images. I'm pretty sure that Facebook has it because they are looking for the area of text, how much text is in an image before you can publish it. So it should be also taken into consideration. So you should be careful, I think.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Musab Ghazi from India. Please, you can ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum. Thanks a lot. I just wanted to, understand how we can make use of, Google Trends, because for one, those trends are generally, they give out national trends, not localized trends. So one, how can you really find localized trends? And second, how can you, practically keep a tab on these trends so that you can, produce corresponding articles which can be, picked up? Thank you.
Yes. So the question is Google Trends. How can you use it more locally instead of whole country based? For news, we use it to see what's trending. I mean, Google Trends is more, as the name suggests, it's more for trends. It's not something real time, but it's a trend that goes over days or weeks. So that's not probably the right tool for it. You should try the Google Keywords Planner for that. And if you want to have even more control or even more information about the keywords, about keyword planning, there are also different paid alternatives, some of which are not very cheap, but they will give you a lot of insight. And one of those is Ahrefs. I just write it here, Ahrefs. So you can look into this as well. I'm not exactly sure in Google Keyword Planner if you can narrow it down per city. I'm not exactly sure. You would probably have to look that up online.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Rahmi. Mr. Abdikadir from Somalia. Please unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Farid, and thank you very much, Mr. Osman, for your simple and insightful presentation. We will appreciate if you share the contents of your presentation. My question is really, and I appreciate that you have mentioned it, the fact that we need to be consistent in whatever we are writing. The topic we are choosing should be consistent, and the platform we are using should be consistent. My question is, you have mentioned different types of content, the 4 different types. What is the best mix in these 4 different types? And what, for example, the percentage of videos versus the percentage of texts we have to use when creating a powerful content? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That's actually a very good question. About the 4 different types, of course, it again depends on the topic, on the niche you will select. That will heavily influence it because some topics will require you to be more photo focused, for example. Others will be better if you have videos. Text, I'm not sure as much. It's probably just for news. In general, there's a rule that something you can see visually is generally better than something you read because people nowadays are, as I said at the beginning, they have much less time and they don't have a lot of patience. So they want to consume something as quickly as possible. And that's, I think, the best the best way to do that is with videos, and you can see that with how many views videos on YouTube get. A lot of people are on YouTube, so the main thing is actually it depends on your niche, but I would say video is probably still the best.
Thank you. Mr. MD Zahidur Rahman from Bangladesh.
Am I audible?
Mr. MD Zahidur Rahman from Bangladesh. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Am I audible?
Yeah, of course. You can ask your question. Go on.
As a newsroom editor for International Desk, I'm always following Daily Sabah. This is a gem piece. My question is, the train just goes viral, sensationalize a ordinary issue. Is that bring ultimate success?
I think there was a cut in your voice. Sorry. So
yeah, could you repeat your question again, please?
Hello.
Hello, can you hear us, please?
Yeah.
Okay, could you repeat your question again?
As a newsroom editor for International Desk, I am always following Daily Sabah. It's a gem piece. My question is, the trend just to go viral, sensationalize a ordinary issue. Is that being ultimate success?
I mean, if it's a very ordinary issue, it's not that easy to make it viral. But again, it depends very much on how you can write a title. Sometimes the issue might not be that sensational, but your title might get more people to read it. But of course, as I said, it should never be clickbait, because if it's clickbait, then people will lose trust in your organization. So there's a balance that should be, I think, kept while doing sensational titles, but it should never be away from the truth. So as long as you can make that balance, it's okay, I guess.
The next question is, I think, Mr. Abdulrazak from Nigeria. Please unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the presentation. My question is, I just want to start content writing. So I just need your advice on what are the major things that I need to know about content writing. That is the key points that you can, as a new writer, how can I start this activity? And be one or two things that you can advise on that. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So about content creation, well, it has to be informative first. It has to be about the topic you want to write about. And of course, there are different kinds of writing. If you want to write in a news writing style, I advise you to look at. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Go on.
Okay, so you can look at the different competitors that are also in the niche, in the field you want to produce content in. So different fields will have different kinds of writing styles. For news, there's a news writing style, and the Daily Sabah, for example, we follow the AP news style, AP style. That has a distinct writing style of news. And if you want to write about news, for example, you have to write everything in as few words as possible. So just drop out every word that's unnecessary, make it as short as possible, not too descriptive. But again, this depends on what you want to write about. It's because it's a general topic, I can't give you an exact formula and tell you, okay, you should write like this. It depends on what you want to write, and the best advice I can give you is whatever topic you want to write about, you should go and check the top websites of that topic and read a lot of their content. Look at how they write their contents and try to learn, try to write, and try to get feedback from people who know how to write, so you can develop yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Rahmi. Our last question is from Musa Modeste from Burundi. Please unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
My question is, I usually to read some newspaper of Turkey, but I didn't, as I know, I'm a journalist, as I know, the information is not only to inform someone or a community. Also, it can be, a newspaper can educate the community by using several items like jokes, something like what, comedy in the end of magazine, but I didn't see any newspaper in Turkey doing such thing. Is it prohibited in Turkey, or it's only the rule of some newspapers and televisions, something like that?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think that really depends on the news outlet you are focused on. I mean, as I said before, from Turkey, we don't have too many news outlets that are publishing things in Turkish, in English, sorry. We have a lot of publications that publish in Turkish, of course, and we have some Turkish news outlets that use humor in their stories, but for the English ones, we really don't have that. I mean, at least at the Daily Sabah, we have, I think we have a serious tone, and it's kind of deliberate. I mean, we never considered humor as a part of news, at least for in our organization, but it's not prohibited in any way.
Thank you, Mr. Rahmi. I think we have like a lot of participants raised their hands. I think we can take the two final questions then. Anum Hanif from Pakistan. Please unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for your insightful presentation. My question is, do names of channel, for example, for YouTube matter? If a person or a group of people are going to start a channel for news-based content, what are your tips and advice for names? Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So about names that can be used in YouTube channels, correct?
Yeah.
So firstly, what is your news going to be focused on? Will you have any focus, or will it be general news?
It will be focused on international content. As I see the categories, you said that international content can go viral,
Yes.
though it's controversial. And secondly, about Pakistan and other countries, news related to Pakistan. So these are the main focus right now. I want to grab international audience attention.
Okay, so that's actually more about a brand name, and it's about brand identity design, which is
because
a bit different.
You cannot change it later.
Sorry?
Because it's hard to think about brand's name. You cannot change it later. That
correct.
becomes your recognition. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. I'm really not an expert on naming brands and companies, but I think that's a different niche. That's a different area. I'm not very experienced in. I'm not sure. I can't answer your question. Sorry.
Thanks anyways. No problem.
Thank you very much. The final question, I think, Ms. Nur Tihani from Malaysia. Please unmute your microphone and ask your question.
Thank you very much, Brother Farid. And thank you very much to Rahmi Osman Bey for your insights. I have two questions. First is, from your experience, what are the don'ts or mistakes that in content creation that people often do? And second one is, what will be good interval in terms of frequency in publishing new content, so it is consistent enough and at the same time it doesn't burden the content creator? That's all.
Okay, so the first question is the main mistakes made during content creation. That's actually a difficult question. I think the title or headline, making a bad title or headline would be one of the most fatal mistakes, because you can prepare the best content in the world, but if you don't have a good headline, nobody will read your story, and you will just kill it. So that's one of the main mistakes, and I would also count adding no multimedia at all into the story is also a big mistake. Photos should always be added if any are available. If not, you should definitely at least have an infographic or a graphic, or if there's a video, that's also good. But even video alone is not enough. You should still complement it with a screenshot at least of the video. There should always be an image that's linked to an article. And what was the second question? Sorry.
The second question was, what would be the good interval in terms of frequency in publishing new contents?
Okay.
So it's consistent enough and not burdening the content creator.
Frequency, that really depends on the niche or the focus area you will be publishing. Because for news, for example, publishing a single story every day is not going to be enough. You will need to have multiple stories, at least, I don't know, at least 10, 20 articles per day published, I would say. Less than that, of course, you can still achieve something, but I don't know if it's going to be worth the time, because a lot of the competitors in news have just huge amounts of output, and competing with that is just not easy. If it's about a different niche, about a different topic, sometimes even a single video per week can do it. For example, on YouTube, one video per week is good enough as far as I know. Sometimes even once every 2 weeks could be enough. So it depends on the topic you will choose. And the best way to understand that is, again, to look at the examples that the best examples in the field, how often they publish and how often they share. That will be a good way to understand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rahmi. Is there anything that you want to say or add before concluding?
I think there's nothing else I can add for now. I mean, as I said, I gave you my email address. If any one of you has any questions, you can feel free to ask me. And apart from that, I hope I was beneficial for you.
Yes, you are. Thank you very much, Mr. Rahmi.
Thank you for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, finally, we come to the end of our today's training session. On behalf of the ICYF President and ICYF Secretariat, we would like to say thanks again to Mr. Rahmi for the informative and productive training session, and to the audiences, of course, for their active participation. Dear participants, I would also like to conclude by wishing you the best in your upcoming online media training sessions. Thank you for your attention, and may God bless you all. Happy weekends to you.